Great.
You let me know that in New Jersey recently became a state, the first state to require grief education in schools. Why is grief literacy so important for children to learn?
Yeah. As we mentioned a little bit ago, the childhood bereavement estimator model says 1 out of 13 kids experience the death of a parent or a sibling before they turn 18. That's 2 kids in every high school classroom.
Right.
Have gone through the life-changing, devastating loss of a sibling or a parent. Then you've got everybody supporting them, grandparent loss, aunt and uncle loss, and grief is often so much more painful than anyone is prepared for, and nowhere do we talk to kids about it. Mm. The interesting thing on that statistic is not only is 1 out of 13 shocking for me as a mom, but the number doubles to 1 out of 8 by the time our kids turn 25.
Right.
So I have an 18-year-old myself. As he heads off to college, I think about him in this environment where less parental support, less guidance, and a lot of pain and grief for he and his friends and his peer group. And if we don't provide kids with tools to know bereavement support exists, you can get it, what you need, how long grief is. There are so many myths out there about grief, like time heals all wounds, right? Just buckle down and you will get over it. That is not, right? And they're out there explicitly and implicitly, right? Or that you can't grieve someone that you've never met, right? The idea that there is collective grief. The world grieves when a famous person that they know, that might really impact them. Or that grief actually comes along with non-death losses too, right? The idea that you could grieve a breakup, that's also grief,
Divorced parents.
Your parents' divorce. You have a sports injury and you blew out what you thought was going to be your future. All of these are grief.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to say to kids that although you may never have gone through a death yet, you've grieved other things in your life, right? And resiliency gets built when you see yourself tackle challenges and endure. Right. And so opening our children's eyes to the word grief, to the concept of loss, to the fact that I now know that this is a thing and I can talk about it, is providing preventative, proactive measures. So when our kids hit life's very shaky moments, they are better prepared to reach out for support resources and to support their friends when they're coping as well.
Who is developing the curriculum?
Oh, you open a can of worms, which is so exciting.
I want to be part of it.
No, in New Jersey, every school district gets to really kind of tackle it on their own. And so there's guidance that's provided from the New Jersey Department of Education on standards. So in New Jersey, there are 5 family bereavement centers. Our Imagine, Good Grief, Common Ground, The Alcove, and Steffi's Place.
Right.
And we have band together to support the state of New Jersey in what we call the New Jersey Grief Collaborative.
New Jersey
Grief Collaborative.
Yes.
We have a whole website launching in the middle of July with all resources to support communities, educators, schools, and students themselves as they navigate both the grief mandate, but also learning about grief as a community, as adults, professional development resources. And so we've drafted a curriculum that's free and available for people to use. But we really recommend that educators get grief professional development before they teach it.
Yeah. We talked off camera a little bit about this idea of the group leader, the teacher, or whatever, following the contact of the child. And I'm hoping that's a big part of this curriculum where the teachers need to learn how to sensitize themselves to these children's grief and loss and to follow them instead of push them as there's some educational goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the mandate requires that students learn about grief and loss.
Right.
And, as a collaborative, we want to continue to push that the adults learn about grief and loss too. Right? Wouldn't it be amazing if a child who's grieving was in a classroom with a teacher who learned all of what we just talked about for grief and loss?
Yeah.
Grief shows up in classrooms. The day you come back from a funeral and people are wondering, do I say something to you or don't I? Right? Like grief literacy, this like goal of speaking the language of grief. Most people are really uncomfortable and don't know how to do it. And then layer on the challenges of being, a public school employee, all these rules about what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. And so we recommend that first administrators get training where we play out a lot of different scenarios that directly impact schools. There's things like graduation ceremonies, and a child was supposed to graduate.
And for the audience, Imagine has one and I think two people who do this kind of training with schools.
Yes, absolutely.
So if anyone needs training, Imagine has some great teachers.
Yeah, we are on a mission to create grief-informed school communities. And those look like these incredible partnerships where mental health professionals get training so that they can be a loss and grief specialist in the school and make sure a family gets the resources they need, and the teacher who's receiving the child back after a death gets the resources they need, so that we don't re-traumatize children by either ignoring their loss, but what the goal is following the lead of the family.
Yeah, that's
right?
Great.
Sometimes people will say like, well, we didn't know all the details. Well, the family didn't want all the details shared.
Right.
And that there is a common understanding that we honor the family's experience before we honor all of our need to know details.
Right.
And once everyone just gets to have the common conversation, which we avoid because they have so many things on their plates, but then there's just a larger sense of understanding and acceptance, because there are best practices in supporting children who are coping with loss.
Yeah.
And as much as it's individual, like there is a way in which we operate that we hope that we can impart upon schools and communities.
I'm going to broaden this idea. So right now we're talking about schools, but I have a sort of mission to push all these ideas in the healthcare realm. So, I'd like funeral literacy to be part of this grief literacy that you're talking about, not only in education, but in the healthcare system. How do you think funeral businesses and bereavement support programs like Imagine can collaborate to sensitize healthcare and educational professionals in grief and mourning? What can we do together to kind of push it upstream, and so people are talking about it earlier?
Yeah, right. Like we teach people about the way babies are born, right? The beginning of life.
Right.
And we totally ignore the end of life.
Right.
But those are the only two givens, right?
The big D word, we're not allowed to talk about death.
Right. And I think funerals are an interesting thing to talk about because people want to tell the story of funerals, what it was like, and we wait for it to happen before we talk about it, and the idea of like whether or not kids get to go to funerals. Sometimes our first exposure is a really significant funeral that we're at. So the collaboration for us, as the New Jersey Grief Collaborative starts to form, Imagine's actually hopefully presenting at the Funeral Director Conference this year, which is like really exciting to get to do. And I have so much gratitude for people in this industry. We started hosting end-of-life industry at our centers to broaden the conversation amongst them. And I think putting our heads together around the entire community of like, what would it look like to provide additional opportunities? Like we even, as now that the mandate says that students have to learn about grief and loss, Imagine's been thinking about like, what would a field trip look like to Imagine? There's this mandate out there. Now you've seen a bereavement center. Imagine if you've seen it before you ever need it, and now your friend needs it, and you can say, I've been there, it's okay. It's a place that I would go if I needed something. So, I don't know. What do you think? How do we collaborate?
I think I want to come to all the events you can get me in. And I think we should have you at all of our events, at any funeral service stuff. I really think there is a disconnect that needs to be bridged. And I think that I love that idea of giving healthcare providers, hospices and oncologists and whatever, geriatric care managers, a tour of Imagine.
Yeah.
And let them see that there's this continuum of care, and they should know about it so they can recommend it and have faith that the people they've cared for are going to still be cared for.
We have 2 child life specialists on staff, and they said that they referred so many families to Imagine that part of their next professional journey was seeing families after they ended up at Imagine. And so now they oversee our clinical nights. And that's been really amazing. And, looking for the places, like you talk about funerals, Imagine started looking for the places where grief shows up that we wouldn't expect it to, like delivery rooms.
Yeah.
So we provided training to an entire OB and delivery department on grief and loss and where it shows up in the maternity journey, right? Like there are so many places where grief and loss shows up that we wouldn't even realize it, and how we can create even more grief-informed end-of-life care. Many of us get into this industry because our family was in it, and there's a lot of still desire and need for professional growth of care and companioning and all of that.
Yeah.
Invitations are out there. You come to everything and anything you want to come to.
Okay, good.
Because, relationships with, as a young person, right? My father died when I was 21 and my grandfather when I was 13. And I remember funeral directors and, they stood there in the corner and they felt really scary. And now that funeral director has buried 4 of the most important people in my life.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's someone that I send a holiday card to now because he's been there for me.
Yeah.
And to have that kind of a relationship, right? Yeah. Like we think about police, we bring them in and people get to know them. We bring in firemen because we don't want kids to be afraid of them, right? Funeral is a part of life that our children are going to experience, and we don't want children to be afraid.
Yeah.
This funeral home, I would bring, my kids would wreck this place.
We have a party here. All right, so I think I have your answer to this, but I was curious to know if you've seen positive or negative outcomes from children attending funerals. And can funeral rituals be improved to get better outcomes with grief and mourning?
Yeah. I think funerals are like points in time, right? They're one moment, and there's everything before the funeral and everything after the funeral that should be included in that.
Yeah.
So giving kids the opportunity to choose, maybe if they're doing a casket and an open casket, how many choices can we provide children?
Right.
Is there a photo that you really want of so-and-so here? Is there something you would like to read, something you would like to leave for the person? And all this is, again, we follow the lead of the children. If they want to do those things and it feels super supportive for them, but never forcing them. And many times they won't even have the imagination or bandwidth to think about ideas. Yep. And so I think as funeral directors in this industry, being able to offer them ways that children can interact with them.
Yeah.
So we're going to do this reading. Would you like to help me decide who does the reading?
Right.
Who would you like to hear up there?
I'll give you a great example of that. I made funeral arrangements. I haven't made funeral arrangements in years for the most part. Years and years and years ago, young father's wife died very suddenly in cancer. 2 boys, 10, 12, can't remember exactly. And he said, should I bring them in for funeral arrangements? I said, yes, bring them in. He proceeds to make funeral arrangements with me. The boys are sitting there quietly, and the dad was going to have a relatively simple kind of cremation and no services. The 12-year-old stands up and says no. And I was like, wow, I can't wait to hear this. And the 12-year-old says, Dad, we were always in the 4th of July parade, but they have this old, like 1954 Cadillac that was a convertible. He goes, I want that to lead Mom to a cemetery.
I love that.
And so it was the middle of February, freezing cold. We put the top down and we filled the trunk and the back, and the boys and us all led the funeral procession to the cemetery. It was phenomenal.
Oh, I love it.
But to give the boys a voice, and the dad let them have a voice too, because that also is important, was an amazing thing to witness and be a part of. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm thinking about like plan A, plan B, plan C. My young son was 4, thinking about like who's the right person to bring the child to the funeral, right? Because you have people who are grieving, right? And the funeral, I'm grieving, right? The widow, the mother. So you really need to utilize a network if you have it.
Yeah.
For me, my child's teachers were the ones that brought him. And they interrupted the wake, and they each came up with roses and they put them on, and then they took him back to school. Oh. He gave a hug. It was an 8-hour wake. I did not want a 4-year-old, there for a full 8-hour wake, sitting silently or trying to sit silently. That felt like this playing out the movie. I would be proud that I got to tell my son that that's what he did at the funeral. When he 8 years later says to me, was I there?
Yeah.
This was where you were there.
Yeah.
Then I just want to tell one other funeral story, because I had the most. Funerals can be things that children get to look back on and think, I'm so lucky so many people cared. When my dad died, I was 21. I had a 19-year-old sister, 16-year-old brother, 24-year-old brother. And my dad worked for UPS his whole life. Men in brown were like the... And as we pulled up to the cemetery, we did not have a limo. We drove in our regular family car, and that felt like exactly what my dad would have wanted. Yeah. Lining the walk to the cemetery was 40 UPS trucks.
Yes.
And all of his employees with their hats in their hands like it was a military funeral.
Yeah.
And to break tradition, she must have asked someone for permission for this. I don't know who she asked. But it was something my siblings and I will never forget, to know that he was that loved in this part of his life, that it also showed up here. And it wasn't just us who were grieving. It was all these other people. For teenagers, that display.
Yeah.
And then after, we had a party at a bar, and forgive me, sorry, we surely did. And it was the way he would have wanted. And so I think with funerals, being okay to break the rules.
Yeah.
And being okay to do things that, like, there are rituals that exist for reasons, because there's structure and it gives us safety, and we're navigating something new for the first time, and providing room for personality and like true representation of who the person was. I love.
Well, you're with the number one rule breaker, so
challenge.
I think that was fantastic. Awesome. I want to leave with some of your insights. And you and I are together today because I think we both believe in the grief support program, that it's effective. And so I was thinking, those people who have come through the program, that I'm going to say, it's my own words, thoroughly process their grief work. They spent time. We have one little gal who's still there after 5 years.
Yeah.
Do you see that leading to families being able to thrive again?
Yeah, I mean, thoroughly processing your grief. I love that you owned, like, these are my words, because I like thought about those words and I was like, grief is like so ever evolving that if we wait to fully process our grief before building a life also.
Yes.
So I think I want to introduce the idea of like living in the and. Like, I am processing my grief and I'm building a life alongside it. I'm building a life around it. And, I love the idea of like this grief container, right? And that in the beginning, our grief takes up the entirety of the container. And, people say they think grief gets smaller over time, right? I think we've maybe seen the graphic where like the container of our grief gets bigger, and it only gets bigger if we do it at the same time, And so there are two permissions that I think grievers really need. Like, one is the permission to say no. No, I'm not writing thank you cards to the people who sent it. No, I'm not, allowing you to keep showing up at my house whenever you want to. But we also need to give ourselves permission to say yes. Like, yes, I will come over for dinner. Yes, I will take help.
Yeah.
Yes, you can come fold my laundry. Thank you to Maria, my neighbor, who did it. Yes, I will allow you to hire a cleaner for my house. Like, so the permission for both during the grieving process, and the idea that, processing our grief is a lifelong journey, because both need to happen at the same time.
Yeah, I'm so glad you presented the answer in the way that you did, because in my mind, thoroughly processing grief work is actually living at the same time as you're grieving. So you defined it. To me, I've been doing this maybe too long, that I put them together. But I love how you separated the ideas that day-to-day living, but also honor your grief, but that does, in my mind, lead to thriving as a family, as a group. If two of those things are done together, would you agree?
Yes, I believe that we can be grieving and live a very happy life.
Yeah,
and they're both there.
You're good evidence of that.
Making space for both, and this is the 8th anniversary weekend.
Yeah.
And so, my grief is right back here, and I used to think about all the things he was going to miss, and now I think about all the things he got to see and all the things he keeps, and we all have our own belief systems about, what happens after life, and after death, right? And our belief, my belief system, is that he still gets to see it.
Yeah.
And being able to talk to my children about that has been so, they scored their first goal. The pang in my chest about him not being able to see it. And it was my 5-year-old son at the time who said, he does see it, right? Like, to have my son teach me, because losing my dad, I don't think I thought for 20 years that he was watching. And then losing my husband, I'm like, I guarantee those two are up there together being like, keep going. Like, we're so proud.
Yes. Awesome. Well, for someone listening today who's supporting a grieving child, a family member, patient, a colleague, what do you wish they understood about grief that we may not have covered today?
I think we probably did cover most, right? The idea that like the grief is so much longer than you expect. And there's a word that we sometimes use, and it's like, she's still coming. Even that word, you're coming to imagine, for 5 years, and that's okay, right? The idea that you were 4 and now you're 9 and your grief is totally different. So I think that the implicit pressure that we still put on people to be over their grief is something that we all need to work on. And when you're supporting someone who's grieving, it stirs up all your own grief. And so it's important that we are taking care of ourselves when we are grieving. So I'd imagine we talk about, what hat do I have on? Am I a therapist, or is this my friend that I'm supporting? So I'm just a friend here. And like, that is really important to identify who the person who's grieving needs you to be for them in that moment. Am I their mother? Am I a disciplinarian? Am I grieving the same person they are? And it's okay for them to see that I'm sad too. So I just invite us all to think about the person we are grieving and what they need from us. And then when we are grieving, what we need from others, and just give yourself grace. Like, grace, grace, grace. Permission, time, and grace.
That is amazing. Thank you. Any other takeaways for today?
I don't know. Can I come back? That's
Yes.
probably it. Can I
Yes.
come back?
Yep.
We have so much work to do.
Yes.
Right?
We will have the second edition.
Yeah, right? They say grievers freeze, fight, flee, or fix.
Yeah.
The fixer one was new for me.
Okay.
That I'm a fixer. I want the grieving process to be better for everybody else after me.
Yeah.
And so for those of us that want to fix, there are ways to structurally, proactively fix the world for those who are grieving.
Thank you for advocating for our grieving children and their extended families.
Thank you.
You are awesome.
Thanks for the work.
Okay.
Thanks.